Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Monday evening to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there. I've had yourselves an awesome Monday and a great start to your week. I got you a little update this evening. I'm really just going to talk on the tropics. And, there's some chatter out there about something potentially developing here in the next 5 to 10 days or so. So we're going to talk about that, talk about the chances of it. I will note that the National Hurricane Center has no mention of this yet, but this could change over the next, I would say, 2 to 3 days, where we might have an area of interest dubbed out there at some point, where you might get an area that has a 10-20% chance to develop. We'll see what happens over the next few days, but just here to give you some pretty basic information. And one of the things I'm trying to get away from, because I feel like I've done it before in the past, I haven't done it much lately, is just talk on things to death. And that's why I limited the evening material to a degree, because we cover most of this stuff in the morning. But of course, we are getting to that time of the year where we really need to start to discuss the tropics. We're getting into late July now, and August is when things really start to have the possibility of cranking up as we day by day get deeper into hurricane season, eventually reaching that peak season into late August into September. So we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about this chance here, talk about the environmental factors that could lead to development, the sea surface temperatures, things like that. And we'll see what happens here, as this could become a bigger topic in the coming days. If you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. You guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over? As always, please put those in the comments below so I can pray over it, and I promise you others will do so too. Let's get rolling. Let's take a look at what's going on right now. We've already mentioned this many times in the morning videos. We have Tropical Depression Don. Don has been so drunk out there just going in circles that it's become depressed now. Not literally, but you get what I'm saying. It's been downgraded from a tropical storm to a tropical depression. This is still forecast to become a tropical storm again. We'll see if it does do so, but as of now, Don's just chilling out in the North Atlantic, just kind of spinning in circles. Some blocking patterns up there is really preventing this from fully just shooting out into the North Atlantic and fully dissipating. So I think we'll be dealing with Don for the foreseeable future, probably all the way through the weekend. But this is Don right up here. It is a 35 mile per hour tropical depression. The central pressure is at 1010 millibars, so 1010 millibars. And you look at the cone of uncertainty, what it's forecast to do over the next really through the weekend. It's supposed to maintain tropical depression status all the way through about midweek, and then it could potentially re-strengthen as it dips a little bit further south, might encounter some somewhat more warmer waters, but then it'll eventually try to move back northwest. And, I don't know if it's going to threaten Newfoundland or anything, or Nova Scotia, but it does have the possibility to bring some big swells to Newfoundland, maybe Nova Scotia, things like that as we get into the weekend. It is forecast to become that tropical storm again, though. But regardless, it's just chilling out here in the fishes. It's not really bothering anybody. It's just doing its thing, and Don's just not really bothering anybody. So let's go on and past this. So we got Don up here. It's just basically a blob of moisture, but it is I would say a subtropical depression, as it's really encountered a lot of dry air and really kind of merged with an upper level trough, if you will. All the focus is going to slowly begin to shift further down to the main development region, which is the tropical Atlantic, way down here. So this is the area that we need to watch. You see these wider colors? That's just thunderstorms out in the Atlantic Ocean way out here. And what we watch for is, as these showers and storms, basically all this moist air kind of chills in this area for a while, eventually do you get some kind of spin up. And it's getting to that time of the year where the main development region begins to wake up, and it gets to its peak season once we get in deep into August into early September. And so we're flirting with that time of the year, and we're getting nothing but closer. So we're watching this blob of moisture right in here, these showers and storms. Will it eventually develop into some kind of center of low pressure, some kind of vortice of energy, and eventually just get its act together to the point where it becomes a tropical cyclone, tropical depression, maybe even tropical storm Emily, which is our next name, our E-name, in the 2023 hurricane list. So we'll watch this. This is the big area that really is going to garner a lot of attention over the next several days. So what we're going to do here is we're going to compare the GFS, European, Canadian, even the icon model, and then take a look at the ensembles. This is the thing a lot of people want to see, and I will tell you, the GFS has been showing some crazy, not so good scenario in the long range. But I want you guys to know, I always want to reiterate this: the GFS is horrible with the tropics and with winter weather when it comes to long range situations. The GFS can be good in the long range at sniffing out pattern changes, but as far as anything past 7 days on the GFS, you can pretty much throw it out the window. And I'll show you why here in a second. But the GFS will really just go out 7 days. If you focus your attention down here, you see these little wind barbs right here. This is what you really watch. But this area that's probably, making your eyes go right to this area right here, this is Dawn. Dawn right here spinning around, and you will actually watch it spin around up here at the top of your screen. But focus down here. What I want you to watch is these yellows. You start to see more vibrant colors, these reds, these oranges. So a piece of energy, kind of a center of circulation, begins to develop down here, or tries to get going. So we get into Wednesday morning. Eventually we get into around Thursday afternoon. You kind of have this really broad spin right here. You see the wind barbs coming out the east, and then they kind of move back south, and then they're coming out the west. Winds are coming out the west. So it's just broad spin. You see the wind barbs kind of going in different directions and a circular motion out here. This is a huge broad spin. And then you got a somewhat more tight spin right into this region. Okay, so you got two pieces of energy right here. So what happens? Well, you take it into Friday morning, you still got this broad spin right in here, and you got this spin right in here. What happens with them? Well, they start to interact with one another and become one dominant piece of energy by the time we get into Saturday morning. And you have the potential, based off the GFS, for some kind of tropical cyclone beginning to develop. You even got a spin right in here, and this is Dawn, still chilling with us, potentially re-strengthening into a tropical storm way up here in the North Atlantic. But like I said, don't focus too much on this. This is the area of attention right here. So we keep this going here, and we're getting into the later half of this coming weekend. And by the time we're into Sunday morning, we could potentially have a strong tropical wave, a tropical depression out here based off the GFS. Okay, and if you're wondering what we're looking at here, this is 850 millibar Fort Max, so vortices. So basically, this indicates that low-level spin in the low levels of the atmosphere. 850 millibars is around 4,000 to 6,000 feet, give or take, 1,000 feet. So about a mile up in the atmosphere. We talk about that 850 millibar range a lot when it comes to our low-level jet, things like that. So we got pretty much a dominant spin way out here in the middle of the tropical Atlantic. And we continue to watch this, and it begins to kind of gain a little bit of a northerly directional pull to it. And we have ridging up here. We got a ridge of high pressure that's really going to prevent it from really chugging too far north. And, we get about a week out. Okay, this is about a week from today. And this is still several hundred miles from the Lesser Antilles. Okay, so people wondering, hey, is this going to mess up my vacation trip in the Puerto Rico or the Dominican Republic, the Lesser Antilles, or the Southeast, the Bahamas? Guys, you have no clue. No clue at all. I mean, a week from today, it's still right here, if there is anything. So this is pretty much as far out as we need to go, really. But I will mention, okay, I'm going to do this on the fly here. I will mention, because a lot of people are going to be asking about it. If you take it back, I want you, let's just keep it at the 18Z, right? And let's switch it to the precipitation map, okay? If you look right down here, we have, 1,007 millibar low pressure sometime next Wednesday morning. This is 8 days. This is 9 days away, okay? And watch it. It's still just chilling, and it doesn't do a whole lot. It really fully dissipates as it enters kind of the Bahamas region. Then this is July 31st, the last day of July. This is how long we could potentially be dealing with this. Okay, it's July 17th, guys. This is 2 weeks out. Okay, so this GFS run shows nothing. We take it back to the 12Z GFS, guys, and it shows a Category 2 or 3 hurricane in the Bahamas. Okay, that's drastically different. That's why it's important. Don't focus on the GFS and its crazy hype scenarios. And this is that time of the year, guys, okay, where you see crazy things posted on Facebook. Facebook is really big for it. And it gets shared like hundreds of thousands of times. And there's no context behind these posts, right? It doesn't show. And even if there is, it's still very irresponsible to post. Okay, so be careful what you believe. Okay, you can't stop people from posting stuff, but do not be gullible and believe everything that you see, guys. And this shows it. You know, the lunchtime run of the GFS showed a threatening hurricane scenario around the last days of July, first days of August. The latest GFS shows a fizzling out tropical system that's not bothering anybody. We take a look at the European model. What does the European model do? Well, it has a bias for really being conservative in these kind of situations, so it's not going to bite much. What I can tell you is we start this Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday evening, July the 19th. Huge broad spin out here. ISO wind barbs moving in from the east, okay, moving south, and just these little isolated, this is a little isolated spin here, a little isolated broad spin right in here. We keep this going, right? And this tries to tighten up as we get closer to Friday morning. So we got a pretty broad spin going on right here. So something's trying to get going, okay? But it's just taking its time, okay? We get all the way to Saturday morning, very weak signal right here. And then we go all the way to next Monday morning. We're about a week out at this point. This is basically a weak, strung out tropical wave. I wouldn't even call it this at this point. Really starting to enter the graveyard of the Caribbean, the Eastern Caribbean, and doesn't do anything. So the latest run, the Euro, the operational run, says nada, it's not going to happen. Canadian run, okay, same thing. Huge broad spin out here. We get into Friday evening, and you see these isobars moving in this circular direction right here. And if you're confused when I say isobars, notice these isobars up here. I'm saying isobars, I mean wind barbs. I do apologize, guys. These wind barbs, you see how the flagged out portion of it is pointing in this direction? This means the winds are coming out the east. This is east, this is west. The winds are coming out of this direction. So coming out the east, coming out the south, coming out the west a little bit. This is really elongated. But you keep this going, and there is a little bit of a wave. And then there's another one on the Canadian model coming off North Africa. But it's kind of like the Euro. It doesn't do much with this. Okay? The icon. What does the icon do? Well, the icon really gets this vortice together quicker. But it just doesn't do much with it after that. It's just really just these multi-pieces of energy out here in the tropical Atlantic by the time we get into Saturday afternoon, and there's not really much going on. So you're thinking, well, Mitch, why are you showing me this if there's no real support from it? Well, I'll tell you why here in a second. Let's look at the GFS ensembles. So this makes up several members, I believe 31 members, basically that create on an ensemble run, which is the GFS. The GFS ensemble. So if you look right here, there's a bunch of members. We take it all the way to Friday afternoon. You got several members, many members down here. Okay, so there's a stronger signal on the GFS ensemble. And we take it into Saturday afternoon. This is right in the middle of the tropical Atlantic. So you do have a signal of a weak low pressure into this region. And this is just continuously chugging westward. Okay, the stronger members try to go a little bit further north, but by the time you get into next Monday morning, you got a couple tropical storms scenarios and then a weaker low pressures. But it's not a strong signal. Why? Because you don't have a lot of members into here. Okay, this is by the time we get into about 6.5 days out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, 9 members. So that's like, I don't know, that's like 35% of the members on the ensemble showing development with this. Okay, the European ensemble, what does it show? So this makes up more members, over 50 members. Okay, so we take it all the way out to about Saturday afternoon. Okay, this is our pivotal point where whatever's out here is chilling out in the middle of the tropical Atlantic. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Around 22, I might have missed 1 or 2 or counted too many, but about 22 out of around, I believe it's 50 or 51 members. Okay. That's not a high percentage either. That's around that 35 to 40% of these members are showing some kind of development of some kind of just weak low pressure. And if you look at these numbers, you ask Mitch, what does 13 mean? That means 1,013 millibar low pressure. Okay, the 09, that means 1,009 millibar low pressure. Okay, which is a pretty weak low. It's not even probably enough to be called a tropical depression. So, depending on the structure of it, but you keep these going, and the members that do survive turn into a formidable tropical system. But I mean, by the time you get into next Monday afternoon, you only have 5 members left. Okay, so why is, I wouldn't say the word concern, but why is this an area of interest? Well, I think most people who are just somewhat know what's going on in the weather world, you guys know that the ocean temperatures, the sea surface temperatures out here in the tropical Atlantic, the Gulf of Mexico, are well above average. This is one of the competing factors against the fact that, hey, yes, we do have an El Nino, right, which is notorious for bringing very quiet hurricane seasons on average. But the competing factor is we have extremely high sea surface temperatures, okay? And that is kind of what's going against the idea of a quieter hurricane season. And that's why they revised their hurricane outlook saying, hey, we might have a slightly above average hurricane season now. But I know you're thinking, well, Mitch, why are you showing me sea surface temperatures in Celsius? Well, it's the quickest map to look at, and most sea surface temperature maps are in Celsius. So 27 degrees Celsius is around 80, 81 degrees Fahrenheit. 28, 29 degrees Celsius is around the low to mid 80s. But once you start to get into this 30 to 31 degrees Celsius, these waters kind of just outside the Bermuda area, well north of the Greater Antilles, and just northeast of the Bahamas region. This is a pocket of warm water. If anything gets over here, it's not good if you have a favorable wind pattern aloft. But 30 to 31 degree Celsius sea surface temperatures, that's equivalent to sea surface temperatures in the mid to well into the upper 80s. And it's well above average into this region. Normally, there's a tight gradient between very favorable warm sea surface temperatures and not so favorable sea surface temperatures. Once you get up in here, this region starts to cool down to the 70s, which isn't that supportive of tropical development. Once you start to get over that 80 degree range, you really start to get into a scenario that really supports tropical development as far as sea surface temperatures. But just like severe weather, guys, there's many other factors that go into favorable conditions for tropical development. Just like there's many other factors that go into favorable conditions for severe weather, for winter weather. Okay. And another thing we look for is, and we'll show this too, look at the sea surface temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico, the southern tip of Florida, around the Key West. Sea surface temperatures are in the low to mid 90s, guys. Okay, it is a bathtub in the Gulf of Mexico. Temperatures in the upper 80s to low 90s in areas. Very warm temperatures. Okay, the Caribbean's actually not super warm. But, man, once you get into the Western Caribbean, into the Gulf of Mexico, and even off the coast of the Carolinas, the water temperatures are very warm. This is rocket fuel, sea surface temperature-wise, for rapid intensification if anything gets into the Gulf of Mexico. This is something to watch later on down the pipeline. So as far as compared to average, you look at this, and these areas in blue, this is, blue, this area is in red, orange. This is temperatures 1 to 2 to 3 degrees above average in Celsius. So that's equivalent to, 3 to 6 degrees in Fahrenheit above average temperatures. That is significant. That is substantial. For this time of the year. Okay, that's well above average in this region. This is something we need to not necessarily be concerned about right now, but need to be aware of. Okay, so that's one of the factors. Another factor is the upper wind pattern. Okay, and we look at it for if anything does get developed down here, and we'll look at the European. And where you see these areas in blue, that is where we have winds that are pretty strong, pretty significant in the upper levels of the atmosphere, which really helps to decouple these tropical systems, make them not vertically stacked, and make them very disorganized, and really disrupts the development of a clear center of circulation. So this is a massive tut right here. Okay, this is basically a tut as an upper level low. Upper level lows bring shear, and when they bring shear, they introduce dry air into these systems that is around. But note, this tropical system, if it's there, would be right here into this region. In fact, here's the L popping up right here. In fact, that might be some other system, but it would be somewhere right into here. Notice there's not much blue around this system. Okay, there's not much shear around the system. So the upper wind patterns support development of something, if something can get going. Now, you keep going, this could eventually encounter some light shear, but any kind of tropical system is going to encounter some wind shear. Okay, it's going to be strong enough to overcome it. Okay, but in general, there is nothing really out here except, I would say, this week in areas of the eastern main development region into the Eastern Caribbean. The Western main development region, and then this is the Eastern Caribbean. There's nothing really stopping this wind pattern wise from development. So you check out the box of the upper wind pattern. You check off the box for sea surface temperatures. These support development. It's just, can you get something to organize here in the next few days? This is a clear example of a tut going on right now, but this will clear out. This will break down, allowing for whatever's here to potentially develop. Okay. Next thing you look at is dry air. Okay, and I do think that it will encounter some dry air. There will be some dry air around here. Usually July. This is basically all this area in brown. This is where there's dry air. The greener color is more moist air. So there will be a lot of dry air on top on the north side of the system, like there always is this time of the year. There's typically a lot of Saharan dust out here in the North Atlantic this time of the year. So we'll see how this is a factor. But I would say you can't necessarily check off this box. Okay. So another thing that really isn't worth discussing in detail is, hey, if anything does development, where is it going to go? What I can tell you, here it is right into here. Okay. And it looks like this ridge, the darker red, which is a ridge of high pressure, which would force anything that's right down here to stay further south, kind of works in tandem with this system. And there's actually some strong ridging right into here. See this purple color? To really force whatever does develop, we'll try to force it into the the Caribbean islands. If it's stronger, it will try to recurve. But all this is hearsay right now. We don't know the details of this, and honestly, there was really no point in getting this detailed in the video. But I do want to let you guys know that I am watching the tropics, and we'll continue to figure out what happens here. I'm not going to talk on this to death unless things really pick up as far as confidence, but I am aware of what's going on out there, and we do need to watch it. We're getting later in the year, which I'm happy, just because, yes, peak hurricane season is kind of a scary time for a lot of people, but we are getting closer to that fall, but we have to deal with that hurricane season too. So that's all I got, guys. I'll talk to you in the morning. God bless all y'all. Stay safe tonight with the storms, and I'll talk to you soon.